وظيفة الليستنج للمنتج اللي احنا هنبيعه على امازون اف بي اي هي حاجتين مهمين جدا. اول حاجة ان احنا نظهر على صفحات البحث من خلال ان احنا نستخدم الكلمات اللي المنافسين بيستخدموها في الليستنج عندهم، ونستخدم الكلمات دي في الليستنج عندنا عشان لما العملاء يحبوا يشتروا المنتج ده يلاقوا المنتج بتاعنا موجود قدامهم. تاني نقطة ودي مهمة جدا وناس كتير مش بتاخد بالها من النقطة دي، هي ان احنا ازاي نقنع العملاء ان هم يشتروا المنتج بتاعنا من خلال الكوبي رايتنج او طريقة كتابتنا لوصف المنتج. في الفيديو ده انا استضفت شريمر، واحدة من أنجح الناس في مجال الكوبي رايتنج وكتابة وصف المنتجات على أمازون، وهنتعلم منها إزاي إن إحنا نزود مبيعاتنا على أمازون وإزاي نقنع العملاء إن هم يشتروا المنتج بتاعنا من خلال وصف المنتج، وهنعرف منها إيه الكلمات اللي ينفع نستخدمها وإيه الكلمات اللي ما ينفعش نستخدمها، خصوصا إن إحنا كعرب مش عارفين اللغة العامية اللي بيستخدموها في امريكا. وعشان انا بحبكم ففي هديه لكل الناس اللي بتتفرج على الفيديو ده، تقدروا تبعتوا الليستنج بتاعتكم على اللينك اللي موجود تحت الفيديو، واما هترد عليكم بتقييم كامل للليستنج وايه الحاجات المعموله غلط فيها وازاي ان احنا نزود المبيعات من خلال ان احنا نعمل تعديلات. ولو عجبكم فيديو النهارده فما تنسوش تعملوا لايك للفيديو واشتركوا في القناه وشاركوا الفيديو ده مع اي حد ممكن يستفاد بيه. يلا بينا.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to speak with you today about copywriting and listing optimization and what it takes to be successful selling online.
Yeah. So let's start right away. What is listing copywriting and how important it is? I believe that this topic is not discussed well in the Amazon space, and most of the sellers are focusing on SEO and keyword stuff like that, and are not paying attention to copywriting. So, what is listing copywriting, especially for Amazon listing?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And SEO and a good keyword strategy is definitely a really important piece of copywriting, but it's not the only piece. So you definitely want to make sure that you are really taking the time to figure out what keywords to use in your listing. However, then you want to take it to the next level by figuring out how you can use the words on your listing to connect with your dream customers, to help them understand why your product is the best fit for their needs, why it's better than the other options out there, and then getting them excited to purchase. So your listing copywriting has to do a few things. It has to communicate what your product is, what it does, what problems it solves, and ideally what benefits it has, so that people are not just learning about the product itself, but they're able to get emotionally excited by how your product is going to help make their lives better.
Yeah, you are right. What is your general tips on copywriting, what to do, what not to do, especially for non-US resident as they don't know the slang word or common word using in US? So what is
Yeah.
your general tips?
Yeah, that's so there are a lot of things that you want to keep in mind. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people making when they are from outside of the United States is they have this assumption that all American customers, they like this really over the top excited language with lots of exclamation points and everything is the best and the
Yeah.
biggest and everything. And sometimes there's a place for that, but it's not always the correct approach to take. And so what you want to do is you always want to make sure that the first thing that you're starting with is a clear idea of who your customer is. If you're not familiar with the slang that's used, if you don't feel comfortable using it, then you probably shouldn't use it, because if you misuse the slang, then it could do more harm than good. If you would like to take on that challenge, then what I would encourage you to do is to actually spend time in places where your customers are spending time, and listen to how they're using that kind of language and how they're talking about things. And so you can do this in Facebook groups, you can do this on Reddit channels. You can do this on Instagram, on YouTube. So there's lots of different places where you can go to hear people or read people talking about their interests sort of surrounding whatever it is that you are selling. And so that's a great way to start to understand what people care about, how they talk about these things, and points that you might want to address in your copywriting. So those are a couple of points to consider. Another thing that's really, really important is understanding that you need to be specific about who you're selling to. So I know how tempting it is to cast a really wide net and to say, well, anybody between, 20 and 80 would like my product. That might be true, but there are a few issues with that. One being that there are so many people selling online already. And so if you're too general, it's going to be really difficult to convince people why they should choose your product over all of the other products that are already out there. And many of them might have a lot more reviews and might have a lot more traction already. And so by being specific, you actually have the ability to be able to start building momentum and selling to people, even if you don't have the most reviews. So that requires spending some time strategizing and doing some research and understanding who you're selling to before you even get to copywriting. So it's not just about putting words down. It's really taking the time before you even start to write about your product to think about who you're selling to think about how you want to position your product, to think about how you'd like to present your brand. And the more time that you can invest thinking about those things, actually, the easier you'll make it for yourself when it comes to writing the listing.
Yeah. That's right. One of the mistakes that I see people make is using keywords like best product or our product or amazing product. So what do you think about using these terms?
I would say it's a area that you want to be quite delicate with. So there are a lot of different words that Amazon doesn't want you to use. Some of those might be environmental claims. Other types of terms, it might just be because you're making unsubstantiated claims. So like you can't actually prove that your product is the best. And so if you're using terminology like that, you do potentially put your listing at risk of getting suppressed or even suspended. So it's not to say that you can never utilize those words, but you need to figure out how to utilize them in a way that is not going to go against Amazon's terms of service. The other thing is that saying this is the best blank, this is the best microphone, this is the best set of AirPods or whatever, obviously not AirPods because that's a branded product, but you understand what I'm saying. If you're just saying it's the best, that's kind of empty. That's not really giving me more information as a customer, but you could say these are the best. This is the best microphone if you're looking to sound professional for your own business podcast. You might be able to kind of capture some of that in that way, but I would still advise against, you can find that list of words that Amazon doesn't like you to use. And from my perspective, it's better to just play it safe than to have to deal with a bunch of hassle of using a term that could cause you trouble.
Yeah. One mistake again that I see more people do that are using their brand name at the beginning of the title. So they are just starting their Amazon business and their brands are not famous. They just starting the brand. So the most important field in the listing is the title. So is using a brand name at the beginning of the title can help growing our brand, or just delete our brand name and use more important keywords instead of?
Yeah, this is a question that I get a lot also from clients. So our approach, and anything that I say, it's most of the time. If anybody's telling you this is how it is 100% of the time, I would say it's always a good idea to do additional research. So most of the time, if your brand is not known, we would recommend putting the brand name towards the end of the title. That's because the whole title oftentimes gets truncated or shortened, so you don't even see the full title, which means that the beginning part of the title becomes extra important for communicating what the product actually is. However, there could be some exceptions. Sometimes people have a brand name that might include valuable keywords in it. So, if you're a microphone company and it's, the podcasting microphones is your brand, sure, include that in the front of the title, because you're going to get exactly. And so if it's simply kind of, a made up word or something that doesn't necessarily relate or is helping people to understand something about the product, then it's probably best to put it towards the end, given if that your brand name does not yet have any traction online. Ideally, over time, you will be building more of that brand awareness so that people are actually searching for your brand name when they're going on Amazon. And once you start to see branded keywords, then that might be a good time to add that brand name into the front part of your title. Where it gets confusing is that Amazon, when you look at their rules about how to write a title, they suggest that the brand name should be at the beginning. That's not something that we ever see Amazon enforcing. So I don't think that that's something that you need to be worrying about too much. If for some reason they reject your title, then you can just put it at the beginning and, you tried, there's no harm done.
Yeah. So as you said, the most important field in the listing is the title. And the job of the title is not conversion based, it's driving traffic. So what is your tips about creating titles in order to increase our click-through rate and driving much traffic as we can?
Yeah, that's a great point. So it is really helpful when you're thinking about writing a listing to think about the job of every piece of the listing. And so as you mentioned, the title is to drive traffic. It's sort of like thinking about having a sign on the front of your building that's telling people, this is what we sell, come on in.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gives a big suggestion as to what to include there. On a most basic level, you need people to understand what your product is. So it should be very clear at the beginning of the title, what is this product? Now, if that's all you're doing, that's not necessarily going to achieve what it is that you're looking to achieve. The second step of that is figuring out what makes my product different or special that I can call out in the title, so that people, when they're on the search results page, will want to click into my listing versus the others. So that could be material based. That could be maybe your product has a different quantity of things. It could have something to do with a specific use case. So all of this is a little bit dependent upon the specific category that you're selling in, as well as what the competitive landscape looks like. But you want to make sure that you are giving people that information that they need to know, because what it's helpful to think about is every customer has a mental checklist when they're shopping for a product of certain things that they need in order for a product to be a good fit for them. So if you're buying a microphone, maybe that not maybe you want to make sure that it's compatible with the devices that you're using. But maybe you're also looking for a podcasting microphone. So one that's going to sound really professional, that's going to be good for voice recordings, maybe that it works well with Zoom. But maybe then let's take it a step further. You're looking for a podcast microphone that is compact and lightweight for traveling, because you're a digital nomad and you are recording from hotel rooms and all over the place, and you don't have a lot of space or excess weight in your bags for a microphone. And so that's where if that's kind of the area that you're trying to target customer wise, you want to make sure that you're communicating that clearly in the beginning of your title so that customers have an opportunity to get that information and then click into your listing over the more general podcast microphone listings that might not be specifically tailored to those that are needing something that's very convenient to travel with.
Yeah, as you said, we have to put the main keywords that customer are looking to see it in our title. That will help us to increase our click-through rate and then our conversion rates. Yeah, so one of the most important things that I see a lot of people struggle when they create their titles or bullet points. Do we write short copy or long copy? For me, I check my competitors and I try to figure out the theme of the competitor that are using. So I start from there. I check my competitors. What your tips about when to do short copy and when to do long copy?
So good copy is as long as it needs to be and no longer.
Yeah.
So that's not really the most helpful answer, but what I ask myself whenever I'm writing something or whenever I'm reviewing something that my team has written is this helping to either push my SEO strategy forward or push the sale forward?
Yeah.
And if it's not doing either of those two things, then it probably doesn't need to be there. So ideally, your bullet points should be pretty short and compact. I would say no more than 200 characters per bullet, but that doesn't mean that they have to be the full 200 characters. I think that's just a helpful guideline because it really will make you have to be very thoughtful about every single word that you're utilizing. So, the longer the bullet, the more the customer is going to have to work to find the piece of information that they want or need. And so you want to make it as easy as possible for people to find the details that they need to know about your product, because the more that you make them work, the more likely that they're going to give up and go elsewhere. People don't want to have to put a lot of effort into understanding a product. They want to quickly go to the listing, check all those boxes that we talked about. And then once they're confident this product is probably what they're looking for, then maybe they'll invest a little bit more time in, reviewing your photos and looking at your reviews and reading some other parts of your listing. And so that's kind of what you should always be thinking about. So really, shorter is 90% of the time better. Every so often you have something that's maybe a little bit more complex, but even in those cases, I would say that information would probably go better in the description or the A+ content than in the bullets. Because, for example, with the A+ content, you have the assistance of imagery in addition to text. And so sometimes those more complex ideas can be presented in a more accessible way by combining imagery and text than by just trying to do it with text.
Yeah, that's right. One of the most famous quotes on copywriting, features tell and benefits sells. So how can we apply this quote to improve our conversion rate for Amazon listing, especially for bullet points and A+ content?
Yeah. Great quote. Love that quote. And I think it's in my email signature. So it's definitely something that I believe wholeheartedly. And what I think is important first to think about is, what is a benefit? Because that can get a little bit confusing. So a benefit is answering that question, why does it matter? Why should I care? So what is this going to help me achieve? What problem is it going to solve? How is it going to make my life better? And you want to be clear about what benefit you're speaking to. As a good first step, I actually think that can be a really helpful way of outlining what you're going to be talking about in your bullets. So if you get clarity around what are the 5 benefits that I want to speak to, and then it's not ignoring the features, because the features are important. If it's a microphone, I need to know what it's compatible with. Those are features. They're not necessarily exciting, but I have to know that or I'm not going to buy the microphone. So the features are important. the benefits are what's going to really help persuade me and get me excited as a customer to buy this product. So you have your benefits, and then you take your features and you match them together. And so that way you're able to make sure that you are communicating the important details that you need to communicate, but then also connecting on a deeper level through the benefits. Now, another point about benefits is sometimes something seems like a benefit, but you want to make sure that you are really, really clear about what is that emotional driver behind the benefit. And if you can continue asking the question, why does it matter? Then eventually you'll get there, but it might take going down a few layers before you hit on it. So something like durability, that seems like it's a benefit, and it is, but it is a more general benefit. It doesn't have that deep specificity that's going to help really make me feel excited as a customer. So let's say that I'm talking about, I don't know, a pair of hiking boots.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're durable is actually going to help give me confidence that I'm going to be able to safely and successfully be able to get through my hiking trips without issue. So that kind of confidence and reassurance is beyond just durability. So in some ways, durability almost is like a feature of, the materials being long lasting, but then the benefit is really something greater than that, of giving me that peace of mind that when I'm going to be out away from cell phone reception, that I know that my boots are going to last and help carry me home.
Yeah. That's right. So as an you are an agency owner, what's the mistakes that do you see that people do while they create their description or listing or bullet points?
So one of these you mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, which is to only focus on the keywords and to just stuff as many keywords as possible into the listing. So that is a huge mistake. It does matter how you utilize the keywords. It matters what keywords you use, but you need to be thoughtful, and you want to make sure that that's not taking away from the readability of your listing. So that's probably the top mistake that I see people make. Another mistake is not spending the time to think about the branding piece and how to position your product in the competitive landscape. So the fact of the matter is that the majority of people that are selling on Amazon, they do not have a unique product. They're not selling something that is the first of its kind. And so because of that, this branding piece becomes incredibly important, because that is actually the thing that you're going to use as a tool to be able to differentiate your product from all of the other products out there. So that's a really critical piece. And it's something that we're seeing that Amazon really is taking seriously through a lot of the different updates that they're offering and the different privileges that you're able to get as a registered brand. So they care about this, but it also is going to have a positive impact on your bottom line and your longevity as a business. So those are two huge things. Some other little things that make a big difference are, really making sure that you're having attention to detail. So making sure that you don't have spelling mistakes, that everything is formatted correctly, that you are having high quality images. All of this speaks to how you're going to be perceived by the customer and whether they're going to see you as a legitimate, trustworthy, reliable company to do business with, or as a company that's maybe selling an inferior product that's just kind of selling some garbage online, and that it's likely not going to be something that's living up to what their expectations are.
Yeah. So I have an interesting question. How to use copywriting in order to decrease our refund or return rate by being clear in our copy?
Yeah, that's so many times when we talk about listing optimization, it's all about getting as many conversions as possible, which is awesome. And I fully agree with, but you want to make sure that they are the right kinds of conversions, because if you are trying to convince people to buy your product that are not an ideal fit for it, then all you're doing is not only creating more costs and having to deal with the returns, but you are also exposing yourself to openings for more negative reviews, which none of us want negative reviews. And so if your product is not ideal for certain situations or circumstances or groups of people, it's better to be honest about that. And it's going to actually build trust with your customers, because they're not going to feel like you're trying to convince them to buy your product no matter what. And instead, they know that they're able to make an informed decision. So, an extreme case would be maybe your product is, let's say you're selling like a face moisturizer, and there are some people that might be sensitive to one of the ingredients. It's, because maybe it's like a very strong, potent exfoliator that can give a really positive experience, but if you have very sensitive skin, it could be too strong for you. Well, it's better to be clear about that. It's going to do two things, actually. First of all, you're going to minimize the people that shouldn't buying it, but also the people that are a good fit, they're probably going to think, wow, this is really strong and it's really going to do what it needs to do, because if it's too strong for sensitive skin, then this means business. And then they know that if there were any other issues or things that they should be concerned about, that you're going to be upfront and honest about that, rather than trying to manipulate them into buying your product no matter what.
Yeah, that's good. So in for product images, what is your general tips while writing captions on lifestyle images or infographics?
Yeah, so a few things. One, make sure that you're optimizing for mobile. And so that's thinking about the size of what you're writing, but also how much you're writing. Because if you're trying to fit too much text onto an image, it's going to be really unpleasant to look at and maybe even difficult to read on mobile, both because of the size that it's going to make the font, but just because it's going to make it really cluttered as well. So thinking about, if somebody's looking at this image on mobile, is it going to be something that they can read without having to zoom in or squint or work too hard? So that really means that you're being very precise and concise with what you're saying. So, no more than a sentence or two or a few short bullet points. You want it to be really snappy, really impactful, really attention grabbing. And then also what we spoke about earlier about the benefits and features. This is a great place to put that into action. So thinking about, how you can combine a detail or a feature that somebody wants to know through the lens of a very emotionally engaging concept. And that's so strong with imagery, because a photo already has such strong impact on its own. And so then when you're able to add text into that to make sure that people are getting the message and the information that you want them to get, but also connecting with them on that deeper level, there's very great power in that.
Yeah. That's right. So what is your final tips for the people who are starting their Amazon business while they create their listing, first of all, title and bullet points and description and like that?
So my first tip would be, go and act like a customer. So go on to Amazon, search some of your main search terms that you're going to be targeting, and really analyze the results. Look at, who are you competing against? If you were a customer, which listings would you click into? Which products would you be most attracted to? What kinds of questions do you have? What kinds of gaps do you feel like are there? And so really taking that time is going to help you understand your customer better, but also figure out how to position your product in a way that's going to maybe answer some of those questions that are currently going unanswered, or address some of those concerns that aren't really being addressed. So another piece of that is not just looking at the listings themselves, but also going into the reviews and analyzing the reviews of your competitors and seeing maybe people are mentioning alternative uses for the product, or questions and concerns they have. So that can really be a great resource to begin to understand your customer and figure out what to speak to in your listing. Another point that's really important is it can be challenging to remember what it's like to not know much about your product. So by the time you get to writing your listing, you've spent a lot of time, doing your product research, and the product inside and out, but your customers don't yet. So making sure that you're covering all of the most basic details, so that they understand your product, they understand what makes it so great. And then as you launch, continuing to take that feedback and to refine your listing, because it's not just something that you do once and that you never have to touch again. It's something that you'll want to continue to refine and update as you learn more about your customers, as you get feedback from customers, and as things develop and change, because what worked 5 years ago doesn't work now, and what works now probably won't work 5 years from now. So really making sure that you're constantly staying up to date with what's happening in your category and in your industry, and also more broadly what's happening in Amazon and e-commerce.
Yeah. Thank you. So for those who want to learn more about copywriting and about your service in order to increase conversion rate, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so we have our website, marketingbyemma.com. We also offer a free listing analysis. So if you would like us to take a look at your listing and provide you with some feedback about things that you can do to make it perform better, we're always happy to take a look. So if you go to our website, marketingbyemma.com/free analysis, you'll be able to fill out a short form and request that. And on our website, you'll also be able to find, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. I recently launched a YouTube channel. So if you'd like to get some more insights, not only into copywriting and listing optimization, but even the types of tools I use and how I manage a team and all of those types of things, I'll be creating a lot of content around that. I think all the major ways to communicate, we're available, and pride ourselves on a very quick response time.
Yeah, I will provide all the links in the description below the video. So Emma, I enjoyed our call today and I was excited about it. You have shared a lot of valuable information and important things that will help us to improve our conversion rates. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. And please don't hesitate to reach out if there's ever anything we can help with.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye.